Today, we honor the life and career of the late Larry Brooks, who sadly passed away on November 13th. We're going to be discussing all his accomplishments, how he essentially became synonymous with New York Ranger hockey. And we're also going to hear from those who knew him best at the end of today's show as well. Just want to let you guys know right off the top here that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. We also want to thank you for making this your first listen and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. So again, this is going to be, like I said, a Larry Brooks tribute episode. Just going to begin with some very general thoughts about his passing and his life and, all of his accomplishments. And again, how he became synonymous with New York Ranger hockey. To me, finding out this news, it was surprising for a lot of reasons. I think one of them is just how suddenly this seemed to happen. There was a article by the New York Post when Larry Brooks was first going to be stepping away from the Rangers and taking some time to address a medical issue. That article ran on October 22nd, and Larry Brooks passed away on November 13th. So less than a month later, passes away due to cancer. And obviously, he's going to be very, very missed. I think those that knew him personally are certainly going to miss him on a personal level. And I know that professionally, I'm certainly going to miss him there as well because, he's somebody that in one way or another basically just kept us connected to the New York Rangers. And I'm going to elaborate on what I mean by that in a little bit here. But it's crazy because it wasn't that long ago, that the Shoulder Check Showcase is an annual charity hockey game that's played every summer, 3 straight years in Stamford, Connecticut. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to attend that. And I'm like 90% sure I saw Larry Brooks. It was from quite a distance. It was from across the parking lot. He was there with a couple of the other New York Ranger beat reporters, but that was only a handful of months ago. And a couple of months later, he's gone. And it's obviously a very sad situation, a tremendous loss for the New York Ranger family and anybody that, has anything to do with Ranger hockey, basically. Anybody that's a fan of this team. The other crazy thing is that he has the Up in the Blue Seats podcast, right? He does that with Molly Walker and Brian Boyle, and they do a great job with that. And he was on an episode of that as recently as just a month ago. So it really does hit you hard and just how quickly this all seemed to happen. But getting back to that article that I referenced just a second ago, the one that announced that, Larry Brooks would be taking some time away from the Rangers to, deal with a medical situation. We had a quote in that article from Post Executive Sports Editor Chris Shaw. He said the following: "We've received so many queries about Larry's absence from our Rangers coverage to start the season. We miss him too, but we know he'll be back as soon as possible. And once again, creating must-read Rangers content for Blue Shirts and NHL fans alike." And man, that's tough to read right now. That hits all kinds of differently. It sounds like everybody was expecting him to return to his role. And we're going to talk a little bit about Molly Walker a little bit later. Obviously, the two of them were very close and they worked together. And she had an article on his passing. But, she said basically the same thing that Chris Shaw said here, that, Larry was just going to keep doing this. And you have to admire that kind of work ethic, that kind of passion. He's been doing this for 5 decades. And to still have that kind of energy, that kind of passion for New York Ranger hockey and that amount of joy for, what he did for a living, you really have to admire that for sure. We did an episode, not an episode, but we did a YouTube short here on Locked On New York Rangers talking very briefly. It's only about 2 or 3 minutes about the passing of Larry Brooks, posted that, not too long after, obviously the news broke that unfortunately Larry was no longer with us. But the phrase that I use on there, and I think I said it once today already, is that he connected us to New York Ranger hockey. And he's been doing it for so long, 5 decades. And it's kind of hard to believe this now if you're just younger in general, or if you're just a newer fan of New York Ranger hockey. But, Larry kept us connected to the Rangers at a time where it was 100% necessary. It was basically a must to read Larry Brooks's most recent article because there were only so many options. As recently as even like 20 years ago, I would say, there were only so many options when it came to getting connected and staying on top of New York Ranger hockey. For years there, the Rangers obviously share MSG with the New York Knicks, right? And if there was a situation where both those teams were playing on the same night, you were watching the Knicks and you were not able to watch the Rangers. And it's crazy to think that that was the case. But yes, if those two teams were playing the same night, you couldn't watch the Rangers. I mean, I suppose if you went to the local sports bar, you could probably get them on there, or, maybe you have like a satellite or something of the like. Maybe it's at least possible. But for most people, if those two teams were playing the same night and you wanted to watch the Rangers, you couldn't do it. So options as far as staying on top of this team were very, very limited. And reading Larry Brooks's latest article was a way to do that. If you were lucky, maybe later that night after the Knicks game, you could see some highlights of the Ranger game on MSG, or if you were really lucky, maybe ESPN would actually show a play or two from the New York Ranger game, which sounds even more far-fetched today. But at the time, if you can believe this, it felt like ESPN did spend at least a little bit more time on hockey. I know they cover the games now and everything, but again, the bottom line, the whole thing in a nutshell, there were only so many options to stay on top of the Rangers. You could watch the game live if they were on, if they were even on TV, or catch some highlights later. But the big thing, the big way to stay on top of it was to read Larry Brooks's latest article, his latest column, his latest opinion piece, whatever it might be. He was somebody that, again, to use that term once more here, kept you connected to New York Ranger hockey. It was an absolute necessity back then. There was no YouTube. There was no, the internet existed, but it was in its infancy. It took like 10 minutes to load a web page. So who wanted to deal with that? Larry Brooks was the way to stay on top of New York Ranger hockey at that time. And what's also interesting to me about Brooks and his career is I feel like in more recent years, more modern time, he's done a really nice job of adapting with the time. He's always struck me as somebody that's kind of old school when it comes to journalism. A lot of people were talking about how he would be in the locker room and never had a recorder, never had an audio recorder when he was interviewing players and whatnot. Had the paper and the pad, or excuse me, the pad and the pen, I guess I should say, and would just write down the quotes, which is amazing because I can't write as fast as people talk, but I guess Larry Brooks could, and obviously that was his style all those years. So yeah, obviously, traditional journalist to say the least, but certainly also somebody that I think adapted with the times. He was on social media, interacted with fans on social media. He obviously was a big part of the Up in the Blue Seats podcast that he did, with Brian Boyle and Molly Walker, and somebody that, again, I think just adapted with the times. And obviously, he was in the newspaper for all those years. His articles were obviously online then as well, and did a fantastic job. Whether you're 9 years old or 99 years old, I think at one time or another, if you are a fan of this New York Ranger hockey team, which I assume most of you are that are watching this or listening to this, then at one time or another, you were connected through this Ranger team through Larry Brooks. And I think that's a testament to him and the amount of pride that he took in doing that job and doing it well for the amount of years that he did it. And it's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate, obviously, what happened, gone before his time. And somebody that it sounds like everybody that knew him, and I believe this too, would have just kept doing this job and doing this job and doing this job as long as he could have possibly done it. And he did it right up until the end and would have kept going. And it's unfortunate that we're not going to have him around to continue through this era of New York Ranger hockey that we're all in at this moment. But, he dedicated his professional life to the New York Rangers, and we all owe him for that. And the very least we can do here on Locked On New York Rangers is what we're doing right now, offering a tribute episode. And if you have any stories about meeting Larry Brooks or what he means to you, feel free to certainly leave them in the comment section of this episode, the YouTube comment section. And if you're listening on audio, feel free to shoot an email a little bit later as well. Maybe we'll read some of them in a future episode. But in just a minute, we're going to keep everything rolling. Again, this is the Larry Brooks tribute episode. It's going to be the entire show. We are going to talk a little bit about the Rangers tribute to Larry Brooks and some of the tributes that the NHL did to him or did for him as well. We will get to all of that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we just want to go ahead and thank everybody for supporting Locked On New York Rangers. As always, the everydayers, thank you guys so much for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And in our next episode, Rangers going to be back in action tonight at 7 p.m. They will play host to the St. Louis Blues. Rangers are trying to snap a 4-game losing streak. Things haven't gone a whole lot better for the St. Louis Blues either, so something's got to give. You got to hope that this is going to be a win for the Rangers, but we'll see what happens. But continuing today, Going to go ahead and continue talking about Larry Brooks here. And I should also mention the reason for us not doing the episode a little bit sooner than we're doing it now is essentially my family and I were away for a week. We had a couple of pre-recorded episodes that auto-published last week, but the passing of Larry Brooks occurred, after we had already left. So definitely knew I wanted to circle back to this and obviously pay our respects together here as New York Ranger fans. So that's why we're doing it a little bit later. But to continue talking about Larry Brooks, I thought the Rangers did a really nice job honoring him before the game. You had the public address announcer talk to the Madison Square Garden crowd, and I thought this is a great term here. They described him as a titan of hockey journalism. I think that fits perfectly. They showed on the big screen pictures of Larry Brooks from over the years, the various players on the New York Rangers, guys like Jaromir Jagr, obviously Henrik Lundqvist, a couple of pictures of Larry Brooks at the rink as well. And over the PA, system, they said that this was an exact quote here of Larry Brooks. In 2018, his excellence was rightly recognized by the Hockey Hall of Fame when Larry was awarded the Elmer Ferguson Award. And for anybody that might not be familiar with that award, I'm going to read to you exactly the criteria and what it means and what it's made to represent here. It is an accolade presented annually to a print newspaper columnist or reporter in recognition of their achievements covering the game of ice hockey. The award is to recognize distinguished members of the newspaper profession whose words have brought honor to journalism and to hockey. And if we're being honest, Larry Brooks could have won that award at least a decade or two before he actually did. But you know what? They got it done. They got him inducted, and he rightly did win this award. At Madison Square Garden during the tribute to Larry Brooks, they had, of course, the moment of silence, and the fans obviously gave him a standing ovation once that moment of silence had concluded. I thought it was also nice how a couple of other teams, went out of their way to also honor Larry Brooks. The Islanders, for example, they left flowers and a couple pictures of Larry Brooks in the press box there. They also showed an image of that during their Hockey Fights Cancer segment. So that was a really nice thing. And as far as me personally, again, I never met Larry Brooks, but in a way, I mentioned this during the YouTube short that we uploaded about a week and a half ago or whatever it was. In a way, I feel like I did meet him. I'm sure some of you probably share those sentiments right along with me because, again, however long you've been watching this Ranger team, in one way or another, Larry Brooks has kind of been a go-between between yourself and the New York Rangers. He, obviously, with all of his articles and all of his different opinions on the New York Rangers, he found a way to get you invested in this team, and he was not shy in the slightest about sharing his opinion, nor should he be. You might agree with what Larry Brooks says. You might disagree with what Larry Brooks says. I mean, look, he did it for 5 decades, right? So I'm sure at one time or another, all of us have agreed 100% with what Larry Brooks, wrote or what he said or whatever it might be. And there's times where certainly we've disagreed as well, but he was not shy about sharing his opinion. And what I can really appreciate and respect about Larry Brooks is he shared his opinion because he wanted to share his opinion. He wanted to share his very honest, very sometimes brutally honest, sometimes very blunt opinion of the New York Rangers, this player, this coach, that GM, whatever it might be. And he did it because he knew he had a following and he knew that people were counting on him to get him their Ranger news, right? He didn't do it in a way that was like, hey, look at me, I'm going to say something ridiculous. We all know, certainly not going to name names, especially on an episode like this, but we all know there are sports media personalities out there who do exactly what I just said. They will just say something completely outlandish, whether they believe it or not, whether they have any conviction behind it or not, just to get the spotlight on themselves. That was not Larry Brooks. Larry Brooks didn't do it for that reason. Larry Brooks did it because that was how he genuinely felt, and he wanted to share his opinion with Ranger fans. And likewise, I'm sure he also welcomed, differing opinions from, maybe the ones that he had. So that's what I like. He told it like it was for the sake of telling it like it was. And I can really appreciate that because that's becoming, I think, something of a little bit of a lost art. But Larry Brooks did that from the beginning of his career right until, obviously the end of his career as well. It's one of those things where I feel like we as fans were a little bit spoiled because everything changes in sports. We know that, right? Different GMs, different coaches, different players, guys get traded, guys get waived, whatever it might be. Players come and go, announcers come and go, media members come and go, coaches, GMs, the whole 9 yards. But when you get somebody that's a part of your team, whether it's the Rangers or anybody else, any other sport that you might be into, any other team that you might watch, and you get somebody that's there for as long as Larry Brooks. Like the only other person that I can think of that even compares when it comes to the Rangers would be Sam Rosen. And of course, Sam, just retired this past or at the end of this past season, and this is his first season no longer as the New York Ranger announcer. But when you get somebody that's there for multiple decades, I mean, it's crazy. It's really wild to think about. And if my math is correct, Larry Brooks was, with the Rangers even longer than Sam Rosen was. But you get somebody that's like the constant of your team that you root for, then certainly there's an attachment there, and you do get spoiled, and you kind of take it for granted at a certain point. I mean, at one time or another, probably all of us took for granted at least a little bit. It's just human nature. It's not that anybody did anything wrong, but we all probably took for granted at one time or another Sam Rosen, and now, of course, Larry Brooks. And Brooksy, again, he was going to keep doing this and doing this until he could no longer do it, and that's basically what he did. There should have been years left, and unfortunately, that's no longer the case. But again, I don't think he ever would have retired. I don't think he ever would have given this up. I don't think he ever would have put down the pad and the pen in the locker room. I think he just enjoyed this too much and took too much pride in his work, had too much passion for his work. And again, just a real shame that he's no longer with us on both a professional level and certainly a personal level for those that knew him well. So going to keep everything rolling in just a second. Basically just going to turn over the reins to the people that knew Larry Brooks the best. There were a lot of tributes, as you can imagine, from around the hockey world. A lot of people had a lot of really nice things to say about Larry Brooks, and we're going to go ahead and get to that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it is easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer for your team. That's where Gametime comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets, fast, easy, and stress-free. Gametime is the best because it's got so many awesome features like the panoramic seat view. That's awesome because you can click on your seats and get a good idea of what you're going to be looking at when you attend your game, your concert, your special event, whatever it might be. That's the absolute best. Also, their zone deals are a game changer. You pick the section, Gametime picks your seats, and you save big. You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's very special Larry Brooks tribute episode of Locked On New York Rangers by, again, essentially just handing the show over to the people that knew him best. We're going to read a couple of statements. A couple of former players obviously had some really nice things to say about Larry Brooks. And we'll begin with a statement from the NHL Alumni Association. I thought this was really nice. The NHL Alumni Association is deeply saddened to learn that Larry Brooks has passed away at the age of 75. Larry brought our game to readers for nearly 40 years, writing with a sense of honesty and passion that will never be replicated. His dedicated coverage of the New York Rangers and the NHL propelled him to icon status, earning him the Elmer Ferguson Memorial Award from the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2018. We send our heartfelt condolences to Larry's son, Jordan, his daughter-in-law, Joanna, his grandchildren, and all those who knew him. And yeah, I don't think I really could have said it much better, excuse me. That term, icon or legend, those terms get thrown around pretty loosely in today's sports world for sure, but it's completely fitting here because you show me a hockey writer who's done this for 5 decades and done it with as much effectiveness, as much passion as Larry Brooks. I'm not so sure that person even exists, and if they do, they're in rarefied air right alongside Mr. Larry Brooks. But we got to do something else here. We can't do this whole episode without talking about Larry Brooks and his, I guess we'll call it a side rivalry with John Tortorella when Torch was the coach of the New York Rangers. And, after the news of Larry Brooks' passing, we had a lot of those clips kind of making their rounds on social media. The clips of Brooks and Tortorella essentially verbally sparring at the end of Ranger games during Tortorella's press conferences. They would go back and forth, a lot of certainly memorable moments there. And that's all well and good. And I understand people, wanting to share that and wanting to laugh a little bit because it's nice. When somebody passes, you remember the good times and you try to remember the funny moments. Obviously, it's tremendously sad, but you do remember the good times, certainly more than the bad. And a lot of people at the time, and certainly even now, got a kick out of Larry Brooks going back and forth with John Tortorella, and that was something that was obviously well publicized. The rivalry that the two of them had when it was happening. But there's a clip involving John Tortorella that's better than anything I just mentioned. It's one that you absolutely must watch. It's only about 6 minutes long, well worth every second of your time. It's from not too long ago. It was after the passing of Larry Brooks. It's from ESPN's coverage. We had Steve Levy and John Tortorella on there talking about Larry Brooks and just talking about his life and his work and essentially everything having to do with Larry Brooks. It is absolute must-watch stuff. I thought the two of them were absolutely fantastic. You cannot do a better job paying your respects to somebody and doing right by somebody than the two of them did. And Tortorella, he freely acknowledged that the two of them butted heads. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. There's a whole bunch of clips and videos of it happening. But what I learned not too long ago, I think it was after the passing of Larry Brooks that I learned this, is that the two of them, Tortorella and Brooks, really did kind of patch things up over the years after Tortorella was no longer the head coach of the New York Rangers and actually, became friends. It sounds like Tortorella did reach out to Larry Brooks when he found out that he was sick, and that meant certainly a lot to Brooks. But they talked about this. Steve Levy and John Tortorella talked about this in the clip on ESPN, that the two of them, essentially the passion that they had for hockey. That's something that kind of bonds people, I think, a little bit. And Tortorella did talk about that, and over time they gained respect. Tortorella mentioned during this video that it was never anything personal between him and Larry Brooks. The two of them basically just felt they had a job to do, and they had to do it to the best of their abilities. Obviously, they're different jobs, but they're certainly both very demanding jobs as well. And what Tortorella said always impressed him about Brooks was that he would come back the next day with a question. After the two of them had gone back and forth and, things had gotten heated a little bit the day before, Larry Brooks would come right back the next day, be sitting front row center, and have another question for John Tortorella. And Tortorella also mentioned that it was always water under the bridge. Like if the two of them kind of went at it and butted heads one day, the next day, clean slate, we're both basically just going back to work. So that's kind of cool to hear that even through all the arguments and the sometimes even borderline nastiness between the two of them, that, it was just a simple situation where both of these individuals felt like they had to do the job to the best of their ability. So it was certainly an entertaining side rivalry between the two of them when Tortorella was the coach here. And it is nice to hear that the two of them did patch things up in later years. But there were other tributes as well. They came in various forms, videos, articles, whatever it might be. You could tell on social media that a lot of the Ranger beat reporters were obviously hit pretty hard by this news, which makes sense. I mean, they all spend a lot of time together. They all travel, I was going to say across the country, but across multiple countries, right? To Canada, to the United States, whatever it might be. And obviously they all knew him well. And again, they all, I'm sure, have that bond from doing all this traveling and covering this New York Ranger team, which is certainly not an easy job. But Molly Walker in particular, I think, was probably hit the hardest by this, which obviously makes sense. They're both at the post together. Sounds like the two of them were very close. I always kind of got that sense anyway. But since the news of Larry Brooks' passing, it's very obvious to see that. So let me just say right now, anybody listening to this, watching this, I would definitely encourage all of you to read Molly's tribute article on Larry Brooks. Very touching. I thought she did a very nice job with that. And obviously, condolences to Molly and all the other New York Ranger beat reporters that obviously spent a lot of time with Larry Brooks and knew him very, very well. But there were tributes across social media as well. Henrik Lundqvist, he built a friendship with Larry Brooks over the years. I mean, Henrik Lundqvist was here for how long was it? Like a decade and a half with the New York Rangers. Obviously, Larry Brooks was here for all that time as well. So they spent a ton of time together. And this is what Lundqvist had to say. He released a statement on Twitter. Throughout my career, he was always there asking questions. I had many conversations with Larry Brooks almost daily about my game, the Rangers, and the game as a whole. I respected his knowledge a ton. Thank you, Larry, for your commitment to the game. You will be missed. RIP. And a lot of you probably know this already, but Larry Brooks is widely credited with bestowing the King Henrik nickname on Henrik Lundqvist. He did it, fairly early in Lundqvist's career. Lundqvist honestly might have been a rookie when Brooks did this because Lundqvist, he started as the backup to Kevin Weeks his first year, and it didn't take long for Lundqvist to take the starting job, and basically the rest is history, as they say. But he had a phenomenal rookie year, did Lundqvist, and I think it was during that season that Larry Brooks, gave him that nickname, King Henrik, and obviously very, very fitting and a great nickname, and it stuck. And Henrik Lundqvist, too, he also wrote an article about Larry Brooks for the Post, so I would recommend everybody to read that one as well. That's also a very nice article. We had Jimmy Veazey on Twitter. Larry, who said this? Larry Brooks was synonymous with the New York Rangers from the articles to the legendary YouTube videos I watched growing up. Nobody covered hockey like him. It never seemed possible that he wouldn't be around forever. As my 6 years in New York went on, I was lucky to be on Brooksy's good side. He was always in my corner, and I looked forward to our informal post-practice talks about the state of the team, the state of the league, college hockey, and family, especially watching his grandson play hockey. He was a legend and one of one. Rest in peace, my friend. Linda Cohn. You won't meet a bigger Ranger fan than Linda Cohn. In fact, she's somebody that I think we got to get unlocked on New York Rangers in the future. Hopefully, we can make that happen. But for right now, here's what Linda had to say about Larry Brooks. This is so sad. Larry was legendary. I saw it up close while covering the Rangers. I gravitated toward him in every media scrum and always enjoyed our conversations because nobody had more passion and knowledge of the game than Brooksy. And then we have Howie Rose here. Larry Brooks was, in my opinion, the greatest hockey writer in New York history. No one in his field knew the game, its players, its people, its heartbeat, its system, its CBA, and most importantly, its soul than Brooksy. A truly deserving Hall of Famer. Huge loss for hockey. RIP. And then there was also, this got my attention as well. There was a video that was posted on Dominic Moore's Twitter account. It was from the broadcast. Dominic Moore and Matt McConnell were calling a game, the Rangers in Utah, on Hockey Fights Cancer Night. And right before the start of the third period, the two of them, everybody holds up those signs, the Hockey Fights Cancer signs and who you're fighting for and who you're standing for. And they both throw Larry Brooks' name onto their cards that they hold up. So they talked a little bit about that. And, Dominic Moore said that he got to know Larry Brooks pretty well over the years, and that Brooks was there for all of Dominic Moore's firsts in the NHL. First game, first goal, first, anything. Basically anything that you can possibly think of. And, again, that kind of just sums up the fact that Larry Brooks was there for everything. He saw it all with the New York Rangers, all the ups and downs and the twists and turns and all the chaos and the drama behind the scenes. He was always there. He saw it all, and he was able to, obviously keep us posted on all those behind the scenes happenings with the New York Rangers over the years. So, not really a whole lot of ways that I can end this, like completely sum everything up perfectly here, other than the fact that we're certainly going to miss him. Larry Brooks was, again, synonymous with New York Ranger hockey. Obviously had a tremendous passion for his job, tremendous work ethic, was a great person behind the scenes by all accounts, entertaining in a lot of ways. And again, you didn't always agree with him. 5 decades, nobody's going to agree with everything that everybody says, right? And I think everybody understands that. But you certainly read his stuff, and I think you were certainly captivated by his work. And again, he's going to be missed dearly, again, from both a professional standpoint and a personal standpoint as well. So we will call it there. If you'd like to share any Larry Brooks stories, like I mentioned earlier, feel free to leave them in the YouTube comment section or email them to me, whatever it might be. Maybe we'll read some of these in a future episode not too long from now, but we'll call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @jchick17. Once again, @jchik17. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.